So again, thank you for joining us. This is Mike Zarnowski. I'm the Senior Director of Community Sports Programs for Special Olympics Maryland. Thank you for taking some time out on this evening and to learn more about and have questions answered, at least as best we can, on coach certification. This session, for the most part, is a repeat of sessions that we had done in the fall. I wanted to give folks one more opportunity to join us and ask questions. As I noted before, for anybody who has joined us in the last minute or so, if you could please mute your phone. We will be certainly want to get your questions and comments, but that helps significantly reduce background noise, which can be annoying for folks. In addition, we are recording the session this evening for posting on the web, and that helps with that. So we'll cover a few things tonight. Again, we'll move through this stuff relatively quickly and then open it up for your questions. We'll go over the coach certification in general, how to become a certified coach, how to renew, next steps that are involved, and then kind of walk through relatively quickly questions we've already heard from coaches, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So again, if there is a burning question that you have as we go through, you can jump in, and but otherwise, if you could hold your questions till the end, that would be great. So the purpose of coach certification, there is only one, and that is to continually improve the sports training our athletes receive. Continually having coaches learn more how to become better coaches is the sole driver, and part of the motivation behind this it comes from the athletes themselves. At a recent athlete congress at the national level, and I think it actually may have been at the international level, that was one of the number one or the top things that athletes ask for, is to continually educate and improve the coaching, the ability of their coaches to train them. And so Special Olympics International and Special Olympics North America have implemented this coaching certification. Well, why now? Well, actually, the requirement for coaches to be certified has been part of Special Olympics for at least the last 25 years. Special Olympics Maryland has gone through a number of transitions and such, and for the last, I don't know, several years, we haven't been very diligent in enforcing or applying and adhering to that policy. And now we've gone through, we've done some computer system upgrades, we've gotten our data is in the process of getting better, and thank you to those of you who submitted additional information for us. And so we're in a position where we can do a much better job of knowing when someone is certified and is not, and also so that the area leaders can find that information easily rather than waiting for a report or whatever. They can go in and look this information up. In addition, recently, within the last year or so, Special Olympics North America adjusted their system and such, and really loosened up or added a lot of flexibility to how we can offer programs and what we can do at the state level to count as experiences towards certification. So we can do many things. We have a lot more freedom and a lot more flexibility to meet the specific needs of our coaches, which we didn't have before. So to who does this apply? Since we are, in essence, reinstituting this requirement in Maryland, and we know that there are many coaches who are not yet compliant with this, we're currently only dealing with head coaches. In fact, actually, we're starting up here with the basketball season for head coaches for basketball, and we'll roll out to all head coaches for all other sports from this point forward in the year. It does not, if you are a skiing or snowshoeing coach, which we are already we are also in the middle season or the middle of the season for that, it does not apply to you. We certainly do encourage you to get certified and to go through coaches training opportunities, although I think the last one was this past weekend up at Whitetail Resort, rather. It's certainly a good thing to do, But the requirement doesn't kick in until the basketball season or with the basketball coaches. So who is a head coach? A head coach is the named head coach for a team, for an actual team, such as, for our purposes here, we consider basketball, softball, soccer, and flag football as the team sports. Yes, there are team components for other sports, but for our purposes here, the named head coach for any sport team, any basketball team, any softball team, is considered a head coach and would be required to be certified. In addition, for those team sports, if you have individual skills athletes, there needs to be a head coach for those athletes who are the coach who's monitoring and leading them through and training those athletes, so that skills coach is there. If you're talking about an individual sport, such as athletics, aquatics, bocce, and such is listed there, a minimum of one head coach per program is required, and that individual would need to be certified. And then in addition, some of our programs, most notably Howard County and Baltimore County, although I believe several others are also following this model, use what we call a sport coordinator model, where in addition to their head coaches for their teams or for their programs, there is a sport coordinator who really oversees the entire program and how the program operates. And in most cases, that person is intimately involved with the training that goes on, with planning out the season, with planning who's on what team, so on down the line. So if you have that kind of a model, that sport coordinator would count as a head coach as well. That's different from some other programs that use that same term of sport coordinator, where the person really is just handling all the paperwork. In that case, if the person really isn't making sport decisions and is strictly in an administrative role, they would not be considered a head coach for our purposes here. Again, it applies to all head coaches for with the basketball season, and at some point in the future, not during 2015, but quite possibly starting in 2016, all Special Olympics Maryland coaches will be required to be certified. That's actually what the policy reads. We're just rolling it out with head coaches initially to get that taken care of. So again, so really, Maryland is behind in implementing this. This is something that is not new in any way, shape, or form. It's been around, like I say, for a quarter of a century or more. So how does a coach obtain a new sport certification? You're a coach, you don't have a certification for your sport. What do you need to do? First and foremost, in terms of this, it applies to all volunteers. You have to complete and maintain your status as what we call a Class A volunteer. In most cases, if you're coaching, if you've been involved with coaching, you've already gone through that process. So that includes the general orientation training that would have happened at the beginning of your involvement as a volunteer of any type with Special Olympics. Also, what we call the Class A volunteer screening. That's the form that you fill out, and a background check is done for you. And then there's a protective behaviors component that needs to be done as well. It's a online short course that you do, and then a set of questions. I think it's 10 questions that you need to answer. And those need to be the Class A volunteer screening and the protective behaviors need to be renewed every 3 years in order to maintain your status as a Class A volunteer. So you need to be a Class A volunteer, and you can't lose that during the time of your coaching status. In addition, and we'll have more information on this as we develop our internal systems, there is a new requirement that all coaches, not just head coaches, need to go through a concussion training requirement starting this year. This surfaced or came about in mid to late October from Special Olympics International, and it's a good thing. All of our coaches should have some basic training. The cost of doing the training, there is no cost. It's actually being handled through the CDC. We're looking at some other CDC or National Federation of High School Sports also has a similar course and such. We'll be rolling out some additional information as we have it developed in the internal processes. That'll happen fairly quickly within the next month. In that case, all for any current coaches, we have until the end of 2015 to have them go through this process. Any new coach, completely new, not involved with the program as yet, would need to get that certification, that concussion training requirement rather, taken care of as they join the program as a coach. And again, more information to come on that. That's not the focus of tonight. So, number one criteria to obtain a new certification is to complete and maintain that Class A volunteer status. Secondly, you need to have a course on the basics of coaching Special Olympics athletes. Typically, that is, or currently I should say, that's either going to be coaching Special Olympics athletes, code of CSOA, or principles of coaching Special Olympics athletes, or POC for that. And there's a number of different delivery methods that, both live, online. We'll be looking at doing a webinar base, which is also online, but the online that I'm talking about is a self-paced online version and such. And we'll talk about some of those specifics in a few minutes. So a course on the basics of coaching Special Olympics athletes, and then also a course on the or development experience. We're being a little broad here. On coaching the specific sport in which the certification is sought. So if you wanted to become a flag football coach, you would need to, and get your certification as a flag football coach, you need to get your Class A certification or clearance, take coaching Special Olympics athletes, or principles of coaching. Most folks do the coaching Special Olympics athletes. And then you'd have to take an approved course on coaching flag football. Then in addition, that, just for notation, that certification is valid for 3 years from the time that you complete all those pieces. Keeping in mind, and I wish we could get everything synced up exactly, it's just not realistic, that Class A volunteer certification could expire in the middle of that, and you'd need to maintain that to be a volunteer. And that's a requirement for all volunteers in any kind of a leadership role. Let's say you already have a certification, or you had a certification that's expired. What do you need to do to renew that certification? Again, you need to maintain that status as a screened Class A volunteer that we talked about on the previous slide. And then complete an approved course either on the specific sport or coaching in general. So it could be, if you haven't taken, let's say you are certified in, let's stick with flag football, and you want to renew it. If you haven't taken coaching Special Olympics athletes already, you could take that and meet that requirement to renew your certification. Or you could take another course on coaching flag football or another learning experience. There's a number of them that are currently available. Again, I mentioned the flexibility that we have now, and we can look at developing additional ones beyond that. And then that certification is valid for 3 years. When we first rolled this out, or first started talking about this, we also indicated that a certification can't be more than a year out of date in order for you to renew it. If the certification was more than a year out of date, you would need to start over and do it as if it's a new certification. We've eliminated that at least through 2015. So if you, and we've gotten a lot of information back from folks, a lot of folks who have taken courses, and we're accepting previous certifications for renewal, even if that certification expired 5 years ago or whatever. We're still accepting that and doing it just as a renewal. That may not happen or be in place for forever, but it will be in place at least through 2015. So how do you know your certification status? Well, any coach who was active in the past 2 years, in 2013 or 2014, and for whom we have a valid email address, was sent back in December a listing of all the training courses that coaches in their county took, as well as the certification status of all, or any certifications for all the coaches in their county at that point. We had hoped to do individual mailings to each individual coach, and that just was not realistic from a time frame standpoint, so we sent it. So all the coaches in Anne Arundel County got the status for folks. To avoid any confusion with that, or to minimize any confusion with that, I should clarify, just because the coach's name did not appear on that report does not mean that they're not recognized as a coach. It just means that we don't have a record at headquarters of them having taken any coaching training courses or that they don't have any certification on record. We also knew that there's a cleanup that's necessary, and we'll talk through the status of that when we get to some of the next steps. In addition to the individual coaches receiving those reports, the area leaders received a report of all the certification as well as all the training, not just for their county, but for the entire state. So if they had a coach who came over or moved recently from another county, they could look up that information there. In addition, within each county, several people have access to what's called GMS. That's our computer system or games management system that tracks all of our data, both our registrations for competitions and for training programs, but also it includes all of our coaches' certification and coaches' training. Area leaders can go in if they have access to GMS, and again, several folks in each county do, and can look it up anytime they want, and they can generate reports anytime they want, strictly for their county, but they can access all that information. In addition, we are developing, we haven't done it yet, but we'll do some type of a push report out several months in advance of each season, letting at least the coaches who participated or coached the previous season know, okay, like for example, we'll do this after we finish this cleanup process. So in early February, pulling a date out of the air, we'll send out to all of the coaches of sports for summer games a report that says this is the status of certification, whether you have it, whether you don't, and so coaches have a lot more time to do that. We actually did that for the basketball coaches at the beginning of November, and so they had additional time beyond what everybody else got when they received it in the middle of December. So basketball coaches have had a lot of time to look through and plan to get their certification updated if they needed to. So we mentioned a couple times approved courses or development experience. And this is a fairly fluid or flexible term, but certainly would include live sports training. Example, this past Saturday, we had both an alpine skiing coaches training on snow at Whitetail Resort, as well as a snowshoe training. Those live trainings count, absolutely. There is also online sport training, whether self-paced through ASAP or something that Special Olympics Maryland offers. We had a basketball coaches rules session last night, actually, that counted as a certification. We'll designate not every webinar counts towards coaching certification. Some are just informational. But we're pretty clear, I think, and we will continue to be clear about what is and what is not a count towards certification. Such as tonight is just informational to sharing and for you to ask questions. But anyhow, we're recognizing, which we really couldn't do much before, all or most of the courses that are offered by the American Sport Education Program, or ASAP. They offer primarily online self-paced courses, but they also offer live courses. And in fact, we provide some reimbursement. Through reimbursement, we provide some assistance for coverage, and actually, I'd say it completely covers the cost of at least half, if not two-thirds, of the courses that are relevant from ASAP. So you have to provide documentation. You'll get an email back from them when you've successfully completed the course. You send that to us. You send also the invoice or the statement, and we'll reimburse you for that. National Federation of State High School Associations, or NFHS, also provides courses. The national governing bodies provide live and online courses. I'm in my volunteer hat. I'm a track and a soccer coach, and have had hosted and attended both many courses for the American, or the USATF, the USA Track and Field Association, and those count towards them. In most cases, we need to get pre-approved, or in most cases, I'm sorry, they'd be approved automatic, but if there's something that's a little different, we'd want you to ask us ahead of time to be sure. Similarly, either NGB, National Governing Body, or Special Olympics officials courses, online or live, count towards renewing your certification. We're also doing what we call master coach online learning sessions or sharing sessions. We haven't settled on a good term for that, but we're doing them for basketball. We have one for that tomorrow and another one on Monday with that, which is basically an opportunity for the very experienced coaches to get together and really learn from each other. It's all done online and with a conference call, and it's not open to any coach because, again, you need to have a certain amount of experience in order to participate, and you have to agree ahead of time that you'll be actively engaged and do a little bit of pre-work potentially for that. So those are offered. If you're an experienced person, you can serve as an instructor for any sports-specific training that may have been led, and that counts towards renewing your certification. We will be rolling out, we don't have it done yet, but what we're calling a structured mentoring experience, where you learn by working under or with an experienced coach in that sport. More on that, and again, it's structured. There are certain parameters and steps and so on for that. We did that in Baltimore County several years ago for track and field, or athletics, and it worked very successfully, and we just want to codify it before we roll forward. And then in addition, as I mentioned before, other learning and development experiences. Not all of these have to be classes, as I noted on a couple things here. We're absolutely open to ideas. Doesn't mean we're going to say yes to everything, but our predisposition would be to look for ways to make things work. So that's some sport-specific examples. Coaching in general examples. We mentioned the Coaching Special Olympics athletes and the principles of coaching courses, live or online. As a unified sports coach, both offered online, and we can offer it live, although we haven't done that in recent years. Maybe we can roll it out again. First aid course from an approved provider, and depending upon how what we do with that, we can potentially host some of those ourselves. Special Olympics Maryland hosted or designed courses on coaching athletes with disabilities, sort of an addition beyond the Coaching Special Olympics athletes. That's a possibility. And then other pre-approved learning or development experiences that get at coaching principles or working with individuals with disabilities. That includes, potentially, if you are a teacher and you are taking classes that are that serve to recertify you, that you have to take for your job to keep your certification as a teacher, depending upon what those courses are, they could count towards renewing your coach certification. Can't say that that it applies to every single course that any teacher takes. It really needs to be focused in on either coaching principles or coaching science, or on working with individuals with disabilities, particularly in motor activities. Not so much working with individuals. If it was a class on teaching reading to individuals with autism, that really doesn't apply quite as much. But there are several other classes that I know teachers have to take or are part of their options, and that certainly can do that. You can kill two birds with one stone and take care of that there. Similarly, if you are a coach outside of Special Olympics and you redo your certification to be you're a high school coach for tennis, and you renew that and you go through a course or whatever it takes to renew that certification, that potentially can also count for renewing your Special Olympics certification. There's no need to be redundant, and it recognizes that Special Olympics is certainly not the be-all and end-all of all information on coaching. We really want to utilize everything that's out there that fits. So, and again, serving as an instructor, and then we're open to your ideas. So next steps, again, coaches all received that report back in the middle of December. On what we had on record, at least for courses that they had taken, as well as certifications status. We acknowledged in that when we sent that out that there are errors there. We're trying to clean that up. The only way we can do that is if we hear from folks, and we've gotten a lot of information from people. We're still actually cleaning a bit of that up yet, and we asked coaches to provide that information by January 19th, that's next Monday, so that we can get it in and can generate another report to send out that says, okay, so we've gotten all your information, everything's in the system, here is what we have, and we're going to move forward from here with the belief and the understanding that this is accurate, and that's that. Again, coaches have had over a month already, and they'll have not quite another week to finish that up. and we've gotten a lot of information, a lot of feedback, or a lot of input from area directors and area leaders who hosted trainings or have some information, and it's been helpful in cleaning that information up. So again, after we get the records cleaned, we'll send that out. Probably the last week of January, we're targeting to get that out to folks. So this is the updated, this is what it is. Going forward after that, head coaches will need to have, in order to bring a team or to serve in that head coach capacity, will need to have a current certification for that sport that extends through the end of the sports season. It can't expire in the middle of the season. And the deadline for that is for each, those of you who have been at all involved with the registration process for Special Olympics Maryland for any sport for the last couple of years, excuse me, there's a deadline after the training registration deadline by which all outstanding forms need to be into headquarters. And for that, that will be the same deadline by which we need to have certification documentation in for head coaches. That's about 5 weeks before the state championship. Hopefully, particularly as we get a little this more instituted, folks will be taken care of well more than 5 weeks before the champion, but we have to have a deadline, otherwise it's, there's no way to say when somebody has or has not met. Last thing we want to do is do something a week before the state tournament, so this syncs up with existing deadlines and should work pretty well. So, questions we've received, and I'll run through these quickly. Some we already have. Can we tell you your certification status now? Yes, we can look that up right now. Actually, your area leaders have all that information, and they can look it up right now as well. We'll be pushing it out at the beginning of the seasons. You have to go through the same class. Definitely not. The whole entire intention here behind having a variety of opportunities gives you a lot of different options to select from. In addition, now that we've been rolling out between the online courses and webinars, you don't have to travel. We know that even though Maryland is a relatively small state compared to many others that are a part of Special Olympics, still traveling to some central location for a live course is not the most efficient use of people's time. So there's these other options that are there. But the intention is certainly not to have you go through the same class again and again and again. If you currently have a certification but you never took coaching Special Olympics athletes, are you going to lose that? No. If you have a current certification, or even if it's an expired certification under the previous system, that will be honored, or you'll be able to renew it up to a year out of date. Again, we're waiving that for now, but ultimately something like that will be in place. But you can renew that through as a regular certification. Now, we'd recommend, if you haven't taken coaching Special Olympics athletes, to take that, and you can use that to recertify, but you're not going to lose your certification if you hadn't completed it for that. So, okay, two different scenarios here. You've got certifications in 3 different sports. First one, you go and take what we're calling one of those general coaching courses. What happens? Because a general coaching course is applicable to pretty much any sport, learning more about unified sports, for example, or first aid, whatever, helps you become a better coach for all of the sports that you coach. So if you take a general course, that will serve to extend your certification for all 3 sports. And again, it goes for 3 years from the time you complete that general course or that general learning experience. Same situation, you've got 3 sports, and you take a course that's for a specific sport. Let's say you're an aquatics, a golf, and skiing, an alpine skiing coach, and you take a course on alpine skiing. You went to the session this past Saturday. What does that mean? Well, that means that your alpine skiing certification will be extended. It has no effect on the other 2. It won't affect your aquatics or your golf certifications. You would need to take something else to extend those. And again, there's lots of opportunities, a lot of options, and we're whether online or live. But learning more about how to coach skiing really doesn't help in general. I mean, to a little degree it might, but it doesn't really help you become a better swimming coach or a better golf coach. So that's why that distinction there. What happens if you allow your sports certification to expire and you don't renew it? Let's say for basketball coming up. If that's the case, you won't be able to bring athletes or teams to a state competition, to a Special Olympics Maryland state competition. Additionally, if your program doesn't have a head coach who has met the requirements, in essence, they're not a head coach, that team may not be able to attend the state competition. We certainly hope that doesn't happen. We've been talking about this now for actually since July, and so folks have been moving forward. So we hope it doesn't happen. But if you don't have a head coach who meets the requirements, that team won't be able to attend. Hopefully, again, that won't happen. I mentioned before about each individual sport team, basketball team, whatever, this next question here, needs to have its own certified head coach. You can't have the same head coach for 3 teams. That's just a standard. Coaching Special Olympics isn't offered all the time. How do we address that? I mentioned before that there is an online option, and Special Olympics Maryland covers the full cost through reimbursement for anybody who takes that course, succeeds in passing the exam that's at the end, which you can take for any of the ASEP courses, and the Coaching Special Olympics Athletes course is offered by ASEP, American Sports Education Program. For any of their courses, you can retake the exam as many times as you need to in order to pass. And I think it's either a 70% or an 80% correct rate that you need to hit on the exam to pass the exam. So you have the online option. In addition, we just went through and we trained an additional, I think it's 15 people between folks at headquarters staff and several volunteers, coaches from around the state, several in Howard County, Baltimore City, Frederick County, the Eastern Shore, Anne Arundel County, trying to think where else we had them come from, Washington County, Prince George's County, I believe, had somebody there. And we'll continue to do these train-the-trainer sessions for folks. So we have a lot more people who can do these, and they will be offered live. We have one, for example, going on in Harford County tomorrow night. I'm not sure exact the location that folks can go to. There's no cost to attend, so if you prefer to go to it live, you can do that. We're offering it at our Special Olympics headquarters at least. Right now we're doing it once a month. We want to see if we get enough attendees. We may shift that to once every other month. But also if any area wants to host one, we've got a pool of folks, and hopefully that'll be an expanding pool of folks who can provide that training, and we'd love to do that. Just need a little bit of advanced planning, and we can make that happen. Similar question for the sport-specific training. How do we address that? We have, number one, we will be offering it. And secondly, we're in the process of developing what we call sport management teams for each sport that's offered at the state level. We expect to have several of them operational over the course of the next 3 or 4 months. For each of the sports in the spring, actually for each of our sports all year round, we have a small team of people who are experts in that sport and are offering the training. As an example, on Friday night of this week will be our 4th live basketball training opportunity. We had one in Howard County, one in Prince George's County. This next one's in Calvert County. We have one going on, another one, I think it was in Baltimore City, another one going on in Montgomery County. Again, we can host a number of those, and that'll offer that. In addition, there's the online learning. For most sports, there's an online option. I can't say that it's the case for every sport, but for most we do. And we're looking at as well, there's the online self-paced as well as online webinars. Like as I mentioned last night, we did a basketball one on focusing in on rules and applying the rules, the sports rules for basketball. And we had 3 folks attend that, and they all met their certification requirements through that. Those folks who are experienced from outside Special Olympics, does that say you're not qualified? No. What we need to know is what training, what experience you have from that, and in most cases, if you've gone through some type of training for that particular sport, that can count towards your learning experience or towards your certification experience. In addition, As was noted in both cases before, you can learn, you can serve, if you've got that experience, you can serve as an instructor for a course, sport specific or a general course, and that also would then contribute towards your being, towards certifying. I don't want to sit here and say that everybody who steps forward and says, I want to be an instructor, is going to be accepted. We need to work through and make sure from a quality standpoint as well as a representation standpoint and such, but that's certainly an option. And we look forward to utilizing a lot of the expertise that we have in here. In addition, I mentioned we have the these master coach, for lack of a better term, sessions that we'll be offering for each sport, or for most sports, I shouldn't say for each sport. And those will be options for folks that are very experienced, and that's a way to learn from each other. What does it take to be pre-approved? We haven't codified that yet, and we'll map that out. In most cases, it really just needs to, we have to have, ensure that there's, whatever the course is that you're asking us to say, is it okay, that it's quality, that it covers appropriate content, towards helping someone become a better coach, and such. Typically, a curriculum, something that already exists for the course, can just be provided, and we can designate that based on that. It's not a terribly difficult process to go through. Doesn't mean we're going to approve everything, of course, but we just need some information on what the course is covering and what it's all about. Schedule of training sessions on the Coaches tab of My SOMD, which unfortunately the modem that connects that to the web, it's a secure server, went down. Comcast was out there today fixing it, and it should be up and live again tomorrow. If you're not familiar with My SOMD, you can access it through the Special Olympics website of www.somd.org. You can get an account. Almost anybody can get an account. You can go in, and there's a coaches section where there's a lot of information, including the trainings that are coming up and those opportunities. In addition, as I mentioned before, prior to the beginning of each season, we'll send out both the status of what all previous coaches' training and certification is, as well as we'll include with that any upcoming trainings for those sports in that communication. Can we include learning opportunities with early season competitions? Yes, in fact, the one that we're doing with Montgomery County on February 15th for basketball is being held prior to their one of the first, I think it's actually the second basketball tournament for the season. And coaches can attend that and get their certification. That said, excuse me, we certainly encourage coaches to get their training prior to it rather than in mid-season, but that's sort of a last-minute catch-all opportunity for that. This one gets at questions of quality. Can we guarantee, or people have gone to sessions that were not of value? Can't guarantee every session is going to be of value. The sheer variety of opportunities, and as we provide better and better information in terms of what's going to be covered, coaches are more likely to be able to select those things that are going to meet their needs best. In addition, with the development of the sport management teams, getting more experts in and looking at developing and presenting this information, that will increase the quality as well. If we have an emergency and the head coach can't make it suddenly to the state tournament, what happens? We certainly, if it's an emergency and it's a truly unique situation, we certainly do not want to penalize athletes in that situation. And if something like that happens, your area director should contact their regional sports director. Their names are here in a little bit, and we'll see what can be worked out. Again, unique situations mean I can't give you an answer right now for everyone. I would imagine that in some situations, or in many situations, something can be worked out. Again, that's assuming that there was a certified head coach ahead of time. If there isn't one by the time frame there, then the team wouldn't be entered in the state tournament anyway. Will there be live training sessions that have both the general and the sport-specific learning sessions? So for a coach who's never been certified, in one day, can you go through the coaching Special Olympics athletes and then the sport-specific. And the answer to that is yes, where we can do that. That's actually one of the core models that's offered, again, for live. We really can't do that with online. It's just too long for people to sit online. And, of course, we wouldn't be able to do it for sessions that are done in the evening. But where we can, if it makes sense, we certainly would do that. Again, that's a very workable model. For alpine and snowshoeing coaches, it's not until the 2016, but for those two sports, there's a dryland training, coaches training session, then there's an on snow. Do coaches need to go to both? No, either one takes care of that. And then for golf, anybody here's a golf coach, they need a head coach for stroke play and a separate head coach for skills. That's in there, and the answer to that also is no. The head coach, the only need for a head coach for individual skills is for those 4 sports, team sports that are mentioned: soccer, softball, basketball, and flag football. Mentioned about the regional sport directors. Here's the 3 folks right there. Nick Anderson, who handles the, southern and eastern Maryland with the counties that he and areas that he covers. Melissa Anger handles central and western Maryland. And then Baltimore City, Sam Hodep's, his title, he's the Baltimore director. It's not regional sports director, but part of his job is filling that role, and he handles Baltimore City and Baltimore County. So that said, that covers the information I wanted to share, and want to open it up to any additional questions that anybody might have that hopefully we can answer. If I can't give you an answer tonight, we certainly will get back to you with an answer as soon as we possibly can. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Remember, if you did mute your phone earlier, that you should unmute it by hitting *6 or whatever the mute function is on your phone. So, any questions? Okay, one more time. Any questions? If anybody was starting to ask a question, we didn't hear you. Okay, well, certainly as the opportunity arises for you to think through this some more, if you have additional questions, please feel free to contact your regional sport directors. They are your primary contact individuals for anything and everything related to sports, and they are, that is now, they had slightly different, more expansive roles working with the areas before. We made the decision a couple months ago to have them focus exclusively on sports to benefit our athletes better and to better meet our needs. So they're there to answer those questions. Feel free to go ahead and send them an email, and they'll do their best to get their answer. Part of their job there is if they don't have the answer, but they will track it down and get the information back to you. So thank you very much for joining us tonight, and great luck throughout the year with your various sports seasons. And we'll look forward to seeing you at a future coaches training or competition. Thank you.